Welcome to Cyber Explain channel. Today we are going to discuss who's who in your digital world. Understanding identity types. Hey there. Welcome back to our little coffee chat about making our digital worlds safer. Today, we are diving into something super important, understanding exactly who or what needs access to all our company's digital goodies. Think of it like a busy office building. You have employees, visitors, maybe even some smart devices running things behind the scenes. We need to know who's who to keep everything secure and running smoothly. So, the most common folks needing access are your employees, right? They're the ones on your payroll, using company laptops and systems daily. Then you have contractors. They're like temporary employees. They need access to get their specific job done, but usually for a limited time. It's really important we treat both groups with a solid security approach, making sure they only get the access they absolutely need. Now, what about your customers? When they sign up for your service, create an account, or use your app, they're essentially creating a digital identity with your organization. They might not be walking in your office, but they're interacting with your digital assets. We need to manage their access securely too, so they can use what they need without us worrying about unauthorized access to their own data or yours. Think about companies you work with, your vendors supplying your raw materials, or business partners you collaborate with. They often need some level of access to your systems to do business with you. This could be accessing a shared portal, sending you invoices electronically, or integrating systems. Managing their access is like giving a key to a trusted guest. You want to make sure they only go where they're supposed to. This is where it gets a bit more interesting. We are not just talking about people anymore. We have IT devices like servers, routers, or even smart sensors on a factory floor that need to communicate and perform tasks. They have digital identities too, often called machine accounts. These accounts allow them to authenticate and access resources, just like a person would, but without a human typing in a password. It's like giving your smart thermostat an ID to talk to your home's network. Similar to device accounts, we also have service accounts or application accounts. These are special accounts that software applications use to interact with other systems or databases. For example, your company's HR software might use a service account to automatically pull employee data into a payroll system. The challenge here is that these accounts often have broad permissions and can be forgotten or poorly managed, becoming a weak link. Imagine a busy factory that runs critical processes overnight, like generating reports or running automated manufacturing tasks. These often use what we call batch accounts. They are designed to run processes automatically, usually without human interaction. The tricky part is, sometimes these accounts are set up years ago, and no one really knows who owns them or what they're actually doing, which can lead to some serious headaches down the road, especially during audits. Let's make this real. Picture a manufacturing plant. Every night, a bunch of batch accounts kick off critical processes that keep the lights on. Think inventory updates, machine diagnostics, or generating production logs. But over time, the folks who set them up have moved on, and nobody is quite sure what each batch account is for, or if it's even still needed. This is a major compliance headache. If an auditor asks, who's responsible for this account, or why does it have access to delete production data, you'd be stuck. It's a perfect example of why we need to manage all identity types. Beyond batch accounts, there are also functional accounts. These are essentially generic accounts set up to perform specific functions, often for shared tasks or roles where it's not practical to assign them to an individual. For instance, a help desk account might be used by multiple support staff to manage incoming tickets. The challenge is that it's harder to track individual actions when multiple people share one login. You see, managing all these different types of digital identities isn't a one-size-fits-all situation. Just like you wouldn't give a contractor the same access as a senior executive, or a smart thermostat the same permissions as a database server, we need different rules for different identities. Their life cycles, their needs, and the risks they pose are all unique. Every digital identity has a journey, a life cycle. Think of it like a person's life, birth, growth, changes, and eventually end of life. For an identity, this means being created, provisioned, used, potentially changed as roles shift, and finally, being deactivated or deleted, deprovisioned. Understanding this journey is crucial for managing access effectively. When a new employee joins, or a new customer signs up, that's the onboarding phase for their identity. We create their account, set up their initial access, and get them ready to go. For employees, this means setting up their email, giving them access to the tools they need for their job. For customers, it's about creating their login for your service. Doing this right is the first step in secure identity management. As an employee moves around in a company, their access needs change. They might switch departments, get promoted, or take on new projects. This means their access rights need to be updated. It's like if you moved from the marketing team to the sales team, you'd need different software and data access. Managing these changes smoothly and securely is a big part of the ongoing identity lifecycle. When someone leaves the company, whether it's an employee, contractor, or even a vendor whose contract ends, we need to offboard their digital identity. This means removing their access to all systems and data. It's super important to do this promptly and thoroughly. Leaving old accounts active is like leaving a back door unlocked, a huge security risk. Because these identities are so different, our policies and review processes need to be flexible. You wouldn't have the same security checks for a customer signing up for a newsletter as you would for an administrator managing sensitive financial data. Our IAM policies need to be tailored to the type of identity and the level of risk associated with their access. For employees, regular reviews of their access are essential. We need to check if their current access still aligns with their current role. If someone has moved departments, their old access might not be needed and should be removed. This isn't just about security, it's also about making sure people aren't bogged down by having too much information they don't need. Contractors usually have a defined project duration or end date. Their access needs to be tied to that. So, when their contract is up, their access should automatically be revoked. We can't let contractor accounts linger around after they've finished their work, just in case they might need it later. That's a recipe for trouble. With customers, it's a bit different. We want to make it easy for them to use our services, but we also need to protect their accounts and our data. This means things like strong password policies, maybe multi-factor authentication for sensitive actions, and ensuring they can only access their data and not someone else's. For our vendors and partners, we need very clear boundaries. What systems can they access? What data can they see or modify? Their access should be strictly limited to what's necessary for the business relationship. We often use special portals or controlled interfaces for them, rather than giving them direct access to our main internal systems. Now, those IT devices and machine accounts, they need managing too. If a server needs to access a database, it needs credentials. We can't just let any device waltz in. These accounts often run as services, so we need to ensure they have the right permissions, no more than they need, and that their credentials aren't easily compromised. Think of them like service staff with specific keys to certain areas. Application service accounts are another area to watch. These are often set up by software vendors. The problem is they can sometimes have overly broad permissions because the vendor didn't know your exact needs. We need to be diligent in understanding what these accounts do and if their access can be narrowed down to meet the principle of least privilege. Remember that manufacturing plant? The batch accounts are the perfect example of a unique management challenge. Because they run automatically, no one person is actively using them day to day. This makes assigning an owner difficult. We need to establish processes where maybe a system administrator or a specific department takes responsibility for reviewing and validating these accounts regularly. For functional accounts, the challenge is attribution. If multiple people use the help desk account and a problem arises, how do we know who did what? This is where robust logging becomes incredibly important. We need to log not just that the account was used, but ideally, who was using it at that specific time, even if they're using a shared ID. So, how do we adapt our review processes? For employees, we ask, does this access still match their current job? For contractors, is their contract still active? For machine accounts, is this device still in use and does it need this access? For batch accounts, who owns this, and is its access still justified? The questions change based on the identity type. No matter what type of identity we are talking about, the principle of least privilege should always apply. This means giving only the minimum access necessary for that identity to perform its intended function. A customer doesn't need admin rights to your network, and a batch account shouldn't have permission to delete user data if its job is just to generate reports. To manage all these different identities and their life cycles effectively, we often use specialized tools. These tools can help automate the creation, modification, and deletion of accounts, manage permissions, and even help with reviews. Think of them as superpowered assistants that keep track of everyone and everything. Cloud platforms like Azure AD, Entra ID, AWS IAM, or GCP IAM offer many of these capabilities. So, the big takeaway is that identity isn't just one thing. It's a whole spectrum of users and entities. To truly secure your organization, you need to understand this diversity, adapt your policies, and implement processes that treat each type of identity appropriately throughout its entire life cycle. It's about creating a robust system that accounts for every digital who and what. Let's imagine a customer signing up for an online service. The system creates a unique customer ID. This ID is associated with their chosen username and password. They can then log in to access their dashboard, view their history, and make purchases. Their life cycle starts at sign up and ends if they decide to close their account, at which point the account and its data would be deprovisioned. A construction company hires a contractor for a 6-month project. An IT admin creates a contractor account with specific access to project files and scheduling software. This access is set to expire automatically in 6 months. After the project ends, the account is disabled and then eventually deleted. This ensures access is temporary and controlled. A web server needs to connect to a database to fetch website content. It uses a dedicated machine account, let's call it web server service. This account only has read access to the necessary database tables. It's not a human account, so we need to ensure its credentials are very secure and that it's only allowed to perform its specific read function. An e-commerce platform has a batch account, order fulfillment batch, that runs every night to process orders. It needs to update order statuses and trigger shipping notifications. The challenge is that nobody remembers who set it up, and its permissions might inadvertently allow it to modify customer data. A review would uncover this and necessitate assigning ownership and potentially reducing its privileges. A shared IT support team uses a functional account, its support desk, to log tickets. The problem is, when a ticket is mishandled, it's hard to trace who made the mistake. To improve this, the organization might implement a rule All users must log in with their individual credentials and then select its support desk as the role they are acting in. This creates an audit trail of individual actions within the shared context. For employees, clearly defining roles is key to managing access. Instead of granting permissions individually, we group them into roles, like sales representative or accountant. When an employee's role changes, we just update their role assignment, rather than manually tweaking dozens of permissions. This makes managing access much more efficient and less error-prone. Each stage of an identity's lifecycle requires specific policy considerations. Onboarding needs streamlined, secure account creation. Mid-tenure requires dynamic updates for role changes. Offboarding demands swift, complete access revocation. Batch accounts need continuous monitoring and ownership verification. Tailoring our policies to these distinct stages is fundamental to strong IAM. So, that's a tour of the diverse digital world we manage. Understanding that identities come in many forms, human, machine, and automated, is the first, crucial step. By recognizing their unique life cycles and risks, we can build a much more secure and efficient environment for everyone. Thanks for joining me today. See you next time. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the CyberExplain channel. See you on the next video.